Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a very, very special January transfer interview, special type, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot to get through at Chelsea Football Club because things are never boring at Chelsea Football Club. You know, apparently some players are unhappy and they're moaning left, right, and centre. Fans losing their crap left, right, and centre. Like, two players say the same thing. One gets criticised, the other one gets praised. What on earth is going on? Why have we not signed anybody? Will we sign anybody? There's a lot to get through. And we are joined by a very, very special guest. Big shout out to Jai Pice for making this happen one more time. Nathan Gissing, or potentially better known as CFCNEWSPAGE, is our fantastic guest for today. First of all, Nathan, big up yourself for joining us. I hope you're well. How you been? Busy time in January, transfer window and stuff, or because Chelsea are not doing anything, it keeps you okay as well?
Yeah, no, I've been busy. Obviously, I've started with the Marzio, so I'm trying to cover other clubs as well. So trying to build up contacts, trying to, find agents to call and stuff. It's been busy, but I'm enjoying it.
There you go. And you mentioned it there as well. I was going to get into it. Obviously, people might, like I said, know you better at CFCNEWSPAGE from Instagram, where you've obviously been starting to get, just come across more and more credible, I suppose, early team news, injury news, this and that, giving the people what they want to hear. But obviously, as we found out a few weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, I don't know how long ago it is at this point, you started working for Marzio. How's that been so far? That been exciting?
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I enjoy transfer window. I enjoy Chelsea. So I thought, why not try writing and get myself out there a bit more.
There you go. So someone asked in the chat just now, is Nathan a Chelsea fan?
Yes.
We presume you are. There you go. Just for people that weren't aware, there you go. Pice, obviously, I did just shout you out, big up yourself for making this happen, obviously, but you're looking forward to this one as well, because there is a few questions that we have, aren't there?
Yeah, 100%. Always love doing collabs, with anyone really, but especially Nathan, because obviously, knows a lot about the transfers and different things going on inside the club. And yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing all the areas because we've got a lot of different areas. It's not just going to be transfers. It's structure. It's contracts and players moaning, as you probably see in the title. So yeah, there's been a lot of stories coming out lately, especially on Tuchel's 1-year anniversary day. There was a lot of articles, a lot of things happening. A few inside pieces and news that are really interesting to read as a Chelsea fan. So I'm looking forward to stream and seeing what happens, seeing what discussions we get up to. Anniversary day, there was a lot of articles, a lot of things happening.
Sorry, I'm having feedback right now. My bad. But yeah, no, exactly. I'm very much looking forward to it as well. Obviously, you touched on it there with starting for Marzio, like we just discussed. I just quickly before we get into talking about Chelsea and everything else, we do really appreciate you for being here. So how has the last few months or year or however long you've kind of been on this road to where you are right now, how has that been for you? Like, do you just feel like talking about Chelsea and inside transfer stuff on Instagram and that one thing led to the other? Or how did things quite happen?
It's difficult. I think my first source approached me, so I got lucky in that sense, I guess. And it just built from early team news, really, I think. And obviously got to some, I said about Lukaku and stuff like that. And yeah, it just went from there, really. I just tried to find news as much as I could.
Exactly. I mean, how's that work? StreamYard is being a little bit slow. Whenever I unmute myself, it takes half a second. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But I would say, Pice, would you agree? Shall we just move on to the first topic of discussion? Because there's a lot to get through today, and we don't want to keep Nathan for about 7.5 hours. So let's just get into it. Obviously, people might not follow you. Everybody, by the way, the links to Nathan's socials are down in the description below, to both his Twitter, where he just called his name Nathan Gissing, and obviously on Instagram, CFCNEWSPAGE. But we did see your tweet earlier talking about that the Andreas Christensen situation hasn't really developed. It's still the same situation, but on contract extensions, it's about Christensen, Azpilicueta, and Rudiger. If we go in that order, for Christensen, you said everything's staying the same and very confident that that's not going to change anymore at this point?
Yeah, no. From what I'm told, he wants a new challenge. He said that in December. He told that to the club in December when he got a new agency. And yeah, his agency have got a good relationship with Barcelona. Bayern Munich also want him. So yeah, I see him going to one of those two clubs. I don't see him renewing a new contract as he wants a new challenge.
There you go. And has that actually just happened since his since he got the new agent? Has that kind of changed his mind, or was he already kind of feeling potentially a new challenge before that? Because obviously, go on.
Beforehand, there was always talk he was going to sign the new contract. I don't exactly know what's changed his mind, to be honest, but I'm confident I can say he wants a new challenge, and I expect him to leave.
Well, there you go. I suppose all the best to him. It's just frustrating that Chelsea put ourselves in a position where he's now going for nothing. When we could have probably in a normal market got, I don't know, 40, 50 million, whatever you can demand for Andreas Christensen. It's a tough one. But what about the two where there is at least a bit of hope still about them staying around? Let's go with Azpi first, because I don't know, really is the bigger one, I suppose. What is the situation with Azpi? Because I feel like over the last few weeks and months, there's been slightly differing reports. Like, obviously, myself and Pice interviewed Liam Toomey right here, and we were talking like he at the time was basically saying, as far as he's aware, Azpi, like, we're more not focusing on Azpi at the time because we want to get this Christensen Rudiger situation done. But now, since we interviewed Liam, it's kind of become a topic where Azpi might actually also leave. Like, does Azpi want to leave? Does Azpi want to stay? Or is it also a case of we're not offering him the money he wants?
Well, he wants to stay on his terms. Let's just put it that way, because he wants a 2-year plus an option of another year. The club are only offering him a 1 year plus an option of another year. So he'll only stay on his terms. There's no agreement with Barcelona yet. There's talks, of course. They've got a contract offer on the table, which he wants. What he's wanting at Chelsea. But there's going to be discussion still to happen with Chelsea. So let's see if they change the contract. Let's see if they changes the contract from what he wants and stuff.
But you think he's absolutely adamant that if it's not his way, it's no way, essentially?
Yeah, I think he'll leave. Yeah, if he doesn't get what he wants, he'll leave.
But is it solely dependent on length of contract, or does he also want certain guarantees in terms of game time?
Yeah, that's another thing as well, because he went through a stage in the season, I can't remember, November time or something like this, where he just didn't play. So he's probably thinking, when everyone's fully fit, I'm not going to play that much. And obviously, Spain, Barcelona, that'd be a new challenge for him. Yeah, I think he'll leave. Interesting.
And can you at least give us hope about the guy that we probably all want to stay the most, I suppose? Because obviously, really good. It's weird, isn't it? Like this whole drama. Like back in the summer, we were all told Christensen, Azpi definitely staying, and Thiago Silva. But obviously, Thiago Silva has thankfully signed that new contract. And now things have swung about, and now Rudiger is arguably the most likely to stay out of the three, would you say?
Yeah, surprisingly, yeah. Because in December time, I thought he was going to leave to Real Madrid because Chelsea were just not offering him what he wants. He's always wanted to stay. This has always been the case. His priority's been to stay. It would take like it would he wouldn't sign any pre-contract agreement with anyone because he wants to nail it down to the last minute till June because his priority is to stay at Chelsea. But there is talks now, encouraging talks about he wants about 180k, 200k a week, more 200k, but I don't think he will get offered 200k up front. I think it would be about 180, 190. Plus there could be some bonuses in his contract, from what I'm told. So that could be like loyalty bonus, Premier League, like winning the Premier League bonus, Champions League bonus, or something like this.
It's interesting, really. But do you have a rough idea of why Chelsea, or first of all, are the numbers even correct that we have heard so far? Where obviously it was always said he wants around 200k. You kind of just confirmed that. But it was said that what Chelsea have offered him was 140k, which is obviously quite drastically less, especially quite drastically less than a lot of other top performers at Chelsea. Do you have any idea why exactly Chelsea were so reluctant to go higher with the contract offer? Because, if you want to value and appreciate the players that perform the best for you, at least, take the whole fact out of it, take just personal fan emotion into it. Rudiger certainly deserves to earn a lot more money than, say, Timo Werner, without slagging Timo off too much. But in terms of how they perform, if one's worth more money, we know which one it is, right? So for me, it was always confusing when those first reports came out. Like, why would we only be willing to offer him 140k? Is it his age, or like Do you know
Yeah.
any chance?
I don't know exactly, to be honest. It did feel a bit surprising to me, but obviously they took the age into the consideration. He was very frustrated at the first offer, so maybe that's why they, took it into hand and fought again, and now negotiations are taking place again. But Real Madrid and PSG offers so far haven't been what he's demanding. So, and they're not going to offer him what he wants of 200k a week. They've been I think they've been even lower than our first offer. So,
Really?
yeah.
That's very interesting. So those reports about, sorry, go on.
Sorry, but that was also going to include a sign-on bonus.
Okay.
So that would be lower than 140k a week plus a sign-on bonus of 200k. So that probably reach about 300 and something k on sign-on bonus. But he demands 200 up front. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I guess in a way that has probably also put Chelsea back into a stronger position in negotiations with Rudiger rather than just the other way around. Because obviously when they hear, they will probably, if you know, and now we know, then I'm sure Chelsea will know that Rudiger hasn't been offered those crazy numbers by the other clubs either. So that obviously puts them into a stronger position, I suppose.
Yeah.
Pice, anything you would like to follow up on the contract extension, or shall we move on?
I mean, as a fan, I just hope that we get it done, really, because I've always said, if you plan for Tuchel long term, then I think Rudiger has to be a part of that. If you want to back the manager, then I think, Rudiger has to be a part of it because Tuchel loves Rudiger. They have a great relationship, as we see. And also for the people saying, well, maybe Chelsea aren't, offering 180, 200 because maybe Rudiger in the past hasn't been amazing in the back four. Maybe Tuchel wants to change the formation. Well, I mean, we've been playing back four recently. Rudiger's looked just as good. Even on the right centre back at times, not even on the left hand side. So I mean, it's interesting what's going to happen, but I am sort of sensing a bit more confidence now. I mean, not just Nathan as well, who's great with the whole contract stuff, but people like Matt Law as well, who have said it's looking positive discussions have happened. It's looking a bit more positive, so we'll see. I still think there's a chance he could leave, to be honest, of course, but I'm a bit more positive, yeah. As for Christensen, I think it's gone too far now, personally, from what I'm seeing. But contracts can happen until the forever. They can go on for a long time. So there could be twists and turns. There has been twists and turns. Just a few weeks ago, we were thinking, oh, Rudiger's definitely gone. So I mean, and that's twisted and turned. So we'll see.
Sorry, Lewis in the chat making me laugh. Have we spoken of Maldini yet? yes, Lewis. Nathan has informed us that he thinks Christensen is most likely on his way out, which is obviously slightly unfortunate. But I guess, obviously not in Lewis' opinion, but if we get to everybody else's opinion, the fact that Christensen is unlikely to stay now probably also makes it much easier for Chelsea to give Rudiger closer to his demands. Because obviously, if you give two players a new contract, less money left, I suppose, than if you only get one new contract, I suppose. So that really does make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. Like I said earlier already, check out Nathan on his social medias. But subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button. And of course, if you want to add any other questions that myself and Pies might not have thought of, do use the super chat function so I can highlight them and we can ask them to Nathan as well, as far as he's obviously aware of the answer, I suppose. But Pies, do you want to take us to the next topic? Shall we move on?
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a little bit about January, right? And what's happened so far. Obviously, as fans, it's been frustrating. Nathan, I think, we've talked about it on Instagram loads as well and what we think's happening and, what are their thought process and stuff, the board's thought process behind this. Because obviously as a fan, you see, well, Chilwell was injured, I think was it December or late November even, I think. And they waited for the scan. They had the scan and then they decided to wait, even though supposedly the doctor's recommendations was to do it now. So we waited a bit. And then obviously Chelsea haven't signed any sort of wing backs at all. Serginho Dest was mentioned. Nathan, I know you know a little bit about him, but I mean, 28 days in, Nathan, can you see anything happening now? Because I mean, even this morning, it's like the Athletic came out and said, oh, well, Malang Sarr can now fill in at full back. So, I mean, Chelsea are pretty happy with that. And for me as a fan, just lastly before you answer, I like Malang Sarr, but again, I think in the Champions League is where I'm mainly worried, because Sarr, Alonso, against those top elite European clubs, I think it would have been nice if we could get someone in just on loan. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole January in general, and what Chelsea have been doing or not doing, as it seems?
Yeah, no, obviously long-term planning needs to be better, because we're stuck with Malang Sarr and Alonso as our fullbacks right now. Malang Sarr, I don't think he's really a fullback, to be honest with you. I mean, I know he's.
I can hear you. All good.
Oh, sorry. Malang Sarr. Sorry, my screen went weird.
All good.
Malang Sarr, I don't really think he's a fullback. He's a centre back, of course. But yeah, we need to be better long-term planning. I don't think we're still trying for Emerson, of course, but I can't see that happening now, especially unless Leon find a replacement. But I really can't see that happening. Dest wants to stay at Barcelona, so I can't see that happening. But yeah, our long-term planning needs to be better. I know January's difficult to get the players you want, but we needed someone. I know Tuchel likes Kennedy, but is he really the right fit for wing back? I don't think so. So yeah, but let's see what happens. Still a few days left.
There are a few days left. I mean, you mentioned there on Emerson, obviously, people that might not be aware, we have tried to get Emerson back from Lyon, but they've so far rejected those offers. Is it a case of they want more money to accept it? Or is it just like, as long as because you just said, will they find a replacement? But are Lyon looking for a replacement? Because if they're adamant that Emerson's staying, they're probably not even looking for one, are they?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're not gonna, get rid of Emerson a few days left before the transfer window, in my opinion, because that wouldn't make sense if you're, turning down all the offers from Chelsea all window to only accept one last minute. That wouldn't really make sense without a replacement and change. So yeah, I can't see anything happening, to be honest. I'll be surprised, but never say never.
It is a weird one. It is a weird one. Just one question. You might not know the answer to this, but I've thought about it many times over the summer, because obviously some fans think Emerson's better than Alonso in the first place, but we do have to admit pretty much every Chelsea manager since we've had both have always played Alonso over Emerson. Sorry. So no matter what I think, essentially, apparently the managers all think Alonso is the better one of the two. But is there a chance that the only reason why Emerson is the one on loan is because he was on lower wages and was easier to find a loan option for? Or was he the one that went on loan because Tuchel prefers Alonso?
I'd say, I don't know if he prefers Alonso over him. I just think Alonso suits the system more in the wing back area. He liked Emerson. That's his priority, to bring him back, of course. He likes his attitude. Because he spoke a lot about him last year in his press conferences, how impressed he was with Emerson and how he deserved to play more game time. So it wasn't really like I prefer Alonso over Emerson. It's just more he suited the system more than Emerson at the time.
And now that we're kind of looking at the back four, you could argue Emerson suits it better, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a pain, but there we are.
There we are. Obviously, a lot of people in the chat have already mentioned a couple of names here. Niklas Süle, obviously that's a summer thing, so we'll get into that a little bit later. Same as the Germany stuff. So I do just want to touch on a couple of things that you just said. The chances of us signing anybody in January are very slim at this point anyway, but just a few names that were at least thrown around for January. One other one was Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona, of course. They have signed Ferran Torres from Man City, so you could argue they have almost his replacement. As reported, obviously, you could tell me if that's correct or not. Barcelona wants him to leave ASAP type thing, but is that still a situation where you could see a last minute type deal to Chelsea happen, or is that, if at all, happening in the summer?
More summer thing, to be honest, because Chelsea need to get players off their books. If we bring in Dembele now, we've got a lot of wingers on our books and a lot of players on our books with high wages. So one thing we need to do is, if we're going to bring in Dembele, we're going to have to sell one or two players and obviously cut down the wage bill a bit. Get the likes of Ross Barkley potentially off the books, and Loftus-Cheek maybe. Even Marcus Alonso leave, because he's only got 1 year left on his contract in the summer, and I don't see Chelsea extending the deal.
No, bloody hope not. Can't lie, bloody hope not. But you mentioned it there in terms of getting rid of players. Have Chelsea been at least trying to do that? Because we can talk about, like, you told us that Tuchel wanted Emerson back. Tuchel didn't want Digne. Tuchel didn't want,
Nope.
I don't know, whichever other wing backs that were thrown around. Obviously, people lost their minds a couple of days ago when Inter seems to have signed Robin Gosens from Atalanta Bergamo, right? Completely ignoring the fact that he's injured anyway. So, by the time he's back and fit, bloody Chile's nearly back fit. So what's the point in that? But was Emerson's Tuchel's first pick above anybody, essentially, or just above Digne?
Yeah, no, he was Tuchel's first choice over anyone because he knows the system well, so he could easily come in and click straight away. That's what Tuchel likes, players that know the system. So he thought Emerson's going to be first choice. I liked him last year. I liked his attitude, like we've said. So that was his first choice.
But at some point when Chelsea didn't realize, okay, Emerson might be difficult, was there never an idea of, if we can't get Emerson back, do we go for anybody else? Or was it always like, okay, if we can't get Emerson, we'll just go with what we have?
I mean, they've been trying with Dest and stuff, but he wants to stay at Barcelona, so there's not much you can really do. That's what I checked again today on Dest, and the situation's still the same. He wants to stay at Barcelona, so that's difficult. I know January is difficult, like we've said. It's difficult to get the right player on the right deal because it's only players that really are not in favour with their team or want to leave the club. That's what January is about most times. But yeah, Kennedy, let's see what happens to him, because I tweeted something saying Tuchel's a fan of him. He was a fan of him pre-season, so we might have to stick with him. Or even when Reece James returns, maybe because he's played there at left wing back a couple of times, so maybe we stick him there and play maybe Chalobah or Azpilicueta still at right wing back or right back.
It's going to be an interesting one when Reece does return. Reportedly, as soon as the Club World Cup, which is fantastic news. Let's see if he's actually going to be back to play or just back in training and going to be playing another 3 weeks later or whatever. Well, I guess we'll find out. But it's going to be interesting whether we'll then play with the back four a bit more like we have done the last couple of weeks, or whether we'll go back to the back three once we have Reece available, I suppose. The other thing you mentioned there, players outgoing. Have we tried to sell players or at least loan players out, like a Barkley, like a Loftus-Cheek, as much as that hurts my heart? But have we tried to do that, or are we literally sat there like, what are we even doing other than trying to get Emerson back?
Yeah, no, his agent, Ross Barkley's agent's been trying to find him a move, but again, no one really wants to pay his wages. That's the difficult thing, trying to get someone to pay his wages or half of his wages when he's played hardly any football. Loftus-Cheek, I haven't been told about trying to move him on or anything, because we need our squad, don't we? We need our squad. We've been moaned, there's been times in the season where Tuchel's moaned about how many players we haven't got fit in midfield or whatever. So we need as many players as possible to be available. Let's see what happens with Loftus-Cheek in the summer, but he won't leave this January.
There you go. I mean, it is just a tough one. Even like the amount of players that we have that we shouldn't have. I mean, Lewis Baker left to Stoke at least. Like, not that I have a problem with Lewis Baker, but the guy just turned 26. We still had him on the books, and he had just recently had his second ever appearance for Chelsea. Like, I'll ask you this now. We'll move on to that kind of topic in a sense in a second anyway. But why do you think we have so many players that we kind of don't want to have? Is it a situation where they make too much money at Chelsea that they would not accept offers from elsewhere? Or is it a case that Chelsea won so much money for them that no clubs that they would be good enough for can afford it? Or is it a combination of all of those things? Like, why do we have so many deadwood players, as fans love to call them?
It's a bit of both, really. It's a bit giving them high wages, and then it's just difficult to offload them when they're on high wages, because it's their job, isn't it? Footballers, at the end of the day, they don't want to take pay cuts. So it makes it 10 times harder to move the players on when we're trying to. But I see players like definitely Ross Barkley and Lonzo potentially moving on in the summer for sure. Let's see about Barkley this January, but it's going to be difficult to see him leave because of his wages. and so close to the window ending. But I can't rule it out.
There you go. It's a tough one. You can never really rule anything out. That's unfortunately quite literally how the football business goes. I mean, personally, I wouldn't be shocked if we turn up at like 11 p.m., deadline day, and all of a sudden there's like, oh, Chelsea have signed that guy. A bit like Saul Niguez. When did the rumors for Saul Niguez start coming out? Like a day before we signed him or whatever? Like, who knows what's going to happen, I suppose. But obviously, we did tell Nathan just before we went live anyway. But what myself and Pice, we've discussed this privately as well. What we would actually love to know is how the actual structure at Chelsea works and what it looks like, who does what. Obviously, a lot of people like to go into Marina, including Pice, I'd throw you under the bus here, bro. But the question that I have is whenever Thomas Tuchel is asked about like who he discusses things with, who he's in contact with, he always mentions not just Marina, but also Petr Cech. So my question is, what does Petr Cech actually do? Because he doesn't train with the goalkeepers anymore, does he? Like he did last season. But what else? Like, is he essentially like a director of football? Is he just an intermediary between manager and Marina, I suppose? But does he take decisions? Like, what exactly is his role?
He does a bit of everything, really. He's one of them that just, he in the summer he was one of them that liked Tuchel. He was one that scouted Mendy, that recommended Mendy. So he does a bit of everything. He's one of those that is in negotiations. He's just one of them that has the answer on things and obviously works with Marina closely and Tuchel.
There you go. And now when we look at transfers, obviously we sit here and like, oh, we should have signed this, we should have signed that. You just told us off air that we shouldn't really have a go at Marina or just Marina. It's not just Marina's fault. It's also like Tuchel actually wanted Emerson. But how does this structure work? Like when Chelsea, like say we wanted a left wing back, right? And Chile got injured in November. We found out in late December that he probably needs, or that he does need surgery and will be out for the next 6 to 9 months, presumably. Does Chelsea have scouts that have already kind of have a few left wing backs lined up, or who sends them to like scout for left wing backs? Like, do you have an idea who makes that decision? Okay, we want to like left wing backs, so scouts, please look for one. Like, where does that start? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously, Tuchel and Marina and Cech are always in conversations. So it really starts with obviously Tuchel saying who he wants really, and we go from there. And like for example, in this, we blamed a lot of the scout in the summer for the deal on Saul, but it was actually Tuchel's decision as well to bring in Saul over Tuchel, because he didn't think Tuchel was 100% ready yet for the Premier League, so he thought, let's bring in Saul for the more experience. So it's just an all-round thing, really. It comes from negotiations from the manager to the hierarchy.
So essentially, what you're telling us is that if Tuchel was more demanding and wanted more players, we would have given that to him, or had he demanded more, what would the situation have been then?
It's difficult to say because January's. I keep saying this, I know, but January's very hard to get the players you want. That's because, for example, in the summer, Tuchel wanted. He didn't mind either Haaland or Lukaku. He really didn't mind between those two. He obviously gives them the options, and the board work as hard as they can to get them. And obviously, there hasn't been the right option in this January window that Tuchel's thought, okay, he can improve the team. And we've also got to think about money-wise and how many players we got on the books and stuff. So January is difficult. I know this, but yeah, if Tuchel would definitely, he definitely has a decision, decisions to make and stuff, but he's not over the top. Like, Antonio Conte got a bit annoyed when he didn't get his transfer targets. Tuchel's more, I'd say, more relaxed.
No, for sure. The surprising thing to me is less that, like, I think we've learned that Tuchel wouldn't be like too angry, too upset if the club didn't give him what he necessarily wanted. But what's interesting to me in terms of what you just said is that it seems like he didn't really want anybody different. Obviously, you said Tuchel understands that the situation in January isn't that easy. You can't just go out and say, give me Theo Hernandez, give me Alphonso Davies. Like, you know, life's not a pony farm. You can't just have whatever you want. But it is still surprising. He's like, yeah, Emerson, because when this whole idea started, look for a different, like, maybe we need a Chilwell replacement. We were still well and truly in the fight for the Premier League. Sure, at this point, maybe you could argue, okay, title's kind of gone anyway. So now let's not do rash decisions in terms of signings in January. But at the time, we were still fine for the Prem. So did he genuinely be, like, obviously you might not know that either, but it's just surprised to me that he would have genuinely believed, yeah, Emerson and Alonso as my 2 left wing backs for the rest of the season, I could win the league with that. Like, that's the part that's very surprising to me, if you get me.
Yeah, but he didn't want Digne, so it was difficult. You know, they thought, is Alonso worse than Digne? Obviously they thought no, so they didn't make any permanent move to go for Digne. I mean, we obviously tried to get an option to buy on him, but Aston Villa weren't going to accept this, so it wasn't going to happen. Emerson's his first choice, so I think we made a mistake. We probably thought we were going to get Emerson, but we didn't realise Leon were playing hardball. Like, so we're probably thinking right now we've made a bit of a mistake of not going for Digne a bit more, but it happens.
I guess so. It happens, yeah. One, like, to turn this Emerson trouble into a little bit of a positive. Is there at least word out there that Leon will probably exercise their option to buy him? Because if they don't give him back to us and then send it back in the summer, I'll be fuming. Like, if they at least buy him in the summer, fair enough. But, you know, if they send it back in the summer, I'll be very annoyed. So do you, as far as you're aware at this moment in time, will they probably use that option to buy that they have?
I don't think so, to be honest, because
yeah,
unless they get Champions League, but I can't really see that unless they get Champions League, they might. But as of now, I can't see it happening. Of exercise,
that makes that even more frustrating, does it not, Pice?
Yeah.
Pice, shall we move on to your big question? I mean, I say your big question, but you told me earlier. Let me get into that, because there've been talks about the Brojas and the Gallaghers, and obviously what I would like to add into that is the whole new loan rules for that start in the summer, how much those will affect us. Pice, do you want to take us into that topic?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it's kind of just leads on from this, really, what Nathan said about, you know, trying to offload players like your Barclays, your Drinkwaters, you know, Zappacosta, Batshuayi, who's still here, you know, all these kind of guys that we like to call deadwood, because they're not involved in the squad or whatever really that much. And it's like, Nathan, do you see a situation where, because obviously we've seen Broja being somewhat talk Southampton with Chelsea, maybe over a permanent move, and I just have fears that to raise money, instead of getting rid of, you know, Alonso, Zappacosta, Batshuayi, all these guys, Barkley, to generate funds because of things like lack of demand, high wages, limited clubs. Do you think we will use players like Conor Gallagher, Armando Broja? Those are the two are mainly because even though Tuchel likes them, he may like them. Money is money at the end of the day. And we saw last summer, Chelsea actually cashed in on a lot of young talent. Do you see Marina, or I'm going to say Marina because obviously I'm pretty sure she's sanctioned to sales, or Roman? Do you see basically the board letting players like Broja and Gallagher go if offers are substantial to generate cash to put into other areas like summer signings? Because for me personally, I see a situation where Crystal Palace, for Gallagher, they desperately want him, right? He's been absolutely amazing for them. Gallagher would obviously like to come back to Chelsea because he loves it. He loves Chelsea. I'm sure he wants to make it here. But at the end of the day, if Palace come in with 35, 40 million, what do you think happens realistically? Because I think these young players will go. And I think that's where fans are going to get very, very annoyed in the summer. Is it's so hard to shift these other guys that don't play. So Marina, or whoever the board is, whoever makes the decisions, are going to turn into these valuable assets to make cash, you know, because it's hard to sell the other guys. So what do you think is going to happen in the summer?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do agree with you there. I think we will likely sell them if a good offer comes in, but that will most likely include a buyback clause in the future, like we did with Livramento, like we did with Tammy Abraham. I know there's talk of Broja already with a buyback clause. It's not discussed yet how much it could be. The negotiations haven't got that far yet of how much it could actually be, but all parties want it. It just Chelsea aren't in a rush though for it to happen. So whether it happens this January, I'm not sure about Broja leaving to Southampton on a permanent, but I think he could leave because all parties want it. It's just Chelsea aren't in a rush to get it done now. So they think, if we leave it another 6 months till the summer, his price might go up in value. So we might be able to get more money or more competition from other clubs, which obviously going to increase his price. But Southampton want it done now. Obviously, his family spoken about how it would be good for him to move to Southampton. Broja will like it as well, even though he has the dream. But he won't be leaving without a buyback clause on the deal. But I think Broja will leave permanently for Southampton.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one to hear because I can't remember where I read it the other day, but I read somewhere that Broja wants to wait until like the summer to see whether Tuchel gives him a chance or not. Can you confirm whether that's true then or not?
Yeah, Tuchel liked him in pre-season. I don't know if he'll potentially give him another chance in pre-season because the parties want it from his side, from his agency side. They want him to go now to Southampton. So it's difficult to say, but let's see what happens. Chelsea aren't in a rush, so I think it's more likely for something they can agree in the summer. I'll be surprised if he leaves now permanently, but like I said, they're preparing a bid of about 23-25 million for Broja, but negotiations haven't got that far on a buyback so far, so it's probably something more for the summer.
Fair enough. I guess it's going to be interesting how the rest of the season goes for him because, if the season's just really good, his value might even go up to a point where Southampton can't even afford what Chelsea would demand. I mean, the Broja one, as much as people might not like to hear that, my personal opinion is, I'm not very happy with Lukaku. If people follow my streams of the last few weeks, you're very much aware of that. But I understand the problem. Sure, you can maybe play them up front together, but they're two proper out-and-out strikers together. Is that what we're really going to do? I feel like I doubt it, that we're going to play two out-and-out strikers next to each other. So I kind of understand the problem with Broja. It's we have Lukaku there, and that's why Lukaku's here. Broja is not going to be a starting striker. And if he can be a starting striker elsewhere, I get that. But where I personally see it a bit differently, and obviously, I mean, you're the one with the inside information, but Gallagher is a different one for me, where it's for me, Gallagher is currently good enough, let alone in the summer, to play if we want to pick him. So then the question comes back to me, sure, if Palace make a substantial offer, fair enough. But if Tuchel wants to use a different midfield that potentially needs three midfielders, then we need to sign somebody anyway. So then at that point, surely just keep Gallagher, right?
Yeah, I agree. But like we said, if an offer comes in that Chelsea feel they can't reject, then obviously he could leave with a buyback. But Tuchel likes him, of course. I think it'll be something he'll definitely assess in the summer before we look at signing potentially Tuchel or try again with Declan Rice. He'll definitely assess what he's got in pre-season. But like we say, Jorginho's only got a 1 year left in his contract in the summer. So I saw there's rumours of Juventus today. So let's see what happens with that. So let's see. Gallagher might stay. But if a big offer comes in, I can't really see Chelsea rejecting it.
Interesting. Very interesting. And how much, just lastly, to cover that point as well, I guess. Obviously, there is the new FIFA regulations starting to come into place from the summer onwards about the new loan regulations. Obviously, you will probably know them better than I do, but as far as I'm aware, you're only allowed, was it 6 loanees above 21? But under 20 or 21 and, younger, it doesn't really change anything, right? So how much of the current situation of us being willing to sell players with buyback clauses, how much of that you put down to those regulations changing? If those regulations wouldn't change, would we still have all of these guys on loan rather than selling them with buyback clauses?
Probably not. Like we said, but it's coming a common thing now where we let them develop, we let them feel settled so they can progress quicker and then buy them back later. Like I expect that to happen with Livramento, of course, because we've got a buyback on him. Probably with Broja as well. So if you think about it, if they're settled permanently at home at their club, I feel like they're probably going to do better. If they keep going elsewhere on loan every season, it's probably not good for good for them, because they have to adapt to new systems, new environment. So for their development, it's probably better they go permanently and then buy them back in the future for them.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, I guess let's see what happens in the summer, I suppose. But I still have hope that Tuchel is like, no, I want to keep at least Gallagher. I'm like, and the board is like, okay, then please, Thomas, keep them then. But I want to get to the topic that I had planned for the stream. That to me is the biggest topic, because it's really triggered me over the last couple of days. Where the reports obviously came out that some attackers have apparently been unhappy with their treatment by Thomas Tuchel. Now, first of all, I'll ask you, how much is that even true? And if it is true, do you know who those unhappy players are?
It's difficult.
Obviously, if you can't say, you can't say. Do you know what
I mean? Yeah, it's. I feel like it could have been. No offense to the Athletic, of course, but I feel like it could have been worded a little bit better, because you can't really put the blame on Tuchel for the attackers for not doing their job. It's their job to score goals, and obviously some of them are doing well, like Mount, of course. Ziyech has stepped it up, but Lukaku, obviously, he's got his problems. We don't need to, that speaks for itself. But maybe the other two need to look at themselves with Havertz and Werner and say, we're not good enough. I mean, we can't really put the blame on Tuchel for this. He's an excellent coach.
But have they tried to put the blame on him?
I don't exactly know, but I know there's been a couple of, tensions behind the scenes. Werner's not exactly that. Kai Havertz and Werner are not exactly those kind of players to put the tension on Tuchel, but obviously there are going to be a few disagreements when Lukaku things happened, and they've been benched for the last few games, I think. So, yeah.
I think on that very note, I mean, obviously, again, if you don't know, you don't know. But I'd be very intrigued. Do you know what at least some of the players around Lukaku, because clearly Tuchel has accepted the Lukaku situation, or, as some conspiracy theorists will tell you, it's just, the board forced him to. We don't know, I suppose. I mean, maybe you do, but I definitely don't know whether Tuchel is playing Lukaku because he wants to play him or whether he has to play him. I don't know. But are the other players all over this Lukaku drama, or are there still some players in the squad that kind of hold a bit of a grudge about all of this?
It's hard to say, because obviously they're not going to be happy when Lukaku's had that incident and they're playing ahead of them, and he's playing ahead of them, of Werner and Havertz right now. Lukaku chooses to play. No, Werner. Tuchel chooses to play Lukaku. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with this. I don't really have much to add.
No, I get it. Like, it's honestly, for me, it is a triggering situation. Like, obviously, you said there's not much more to add on Lukaku, and you're not wrong. But it's just, that's the part where I'm like, Tuchel, I don't understand you, bro. Like, Lukaku's played like 6 games in a row, or is it 5? I don't know how many it is. Was, in my opinion, awful in all of them. Sure, maybe 1 or 2 you can debate. He wasn't all that bad, but it definitely wasn't £100 million good, was he? That's for sure. So then I don't understand why £72 million player Kai Havertz doesn't see the light of day. I presume it's not his broken little finger that's stopping him from getting game time. I presume it's not. So for me, like, if those reports, if we claim for them to be true, no matter how true, if we say like, okay, Kai, I understand being slightly unhappy, sure. Timo Werner, he's just not good enough. You're not allowed to be happy, in my opinion. The only other guy that I can understand being a little bit frustrated is probably Pulisic, because I'm like, last time he got to play his best position, played well against Liverpool. Since then, he hasn't got to play there. So I understand a little bit of frustration there. Yeah. But all the others, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understand his frustration. because I think he's good off the bench. I think he's a good impact player off the bench. I think he's good when he's playing his position. He can do a job at wing back, of course. Obviously, not as well as the main ones, of course. But I think he can do a better job than Hudson-Odoi at full back. Obviously, he's going to be a little bit frustrated, of course. He's not playing as much, but it's life as a footballer.
It is life as a footballer. It's interesting that you said that, though. Why do you think Pulisic handles better as a wing-back / full-back than Callum? Is that just I don't know, mentality, or do you think he's better suited as a player, or what?
I think he's better. Well, he's played there in the past, hasn't he? So I think he's obviously got more experience under that role. I also think he's probably better defensively than Hudson-Odoi. In my opinion, I think he's a better fullback than Hudson-Odoi. That's my opinion.
No, fair dues. Just quickly, because I saw someone in the chat talk about it as well. Pies can give his thoughts in a second as well if he wants to. Just from me, this whole debate today, our Christian Pulisic's interview. Now, personally, if every big account didn't take the quotes out of context and actually put the quotes together as they were said, I don't think Pulisic said a single word wrong. For me, how I saw it is Pulisic actually dealt with the media quite well in that situation, I thought, because every footballer is allowed to have a bit of frustration if they're not playing. That's totally understandable. Any player would be. But there is the way of handling it like Lukaku did while being injured, complaining about things and organising interviews that nobody knows about. While Christian Pulisic does it on international duty, is asked and just says, well, yeah, it's not ideal right now, but, I'm working as hard as I can to play where I want to play, and it's good to be versatile anyway. I don't understand why people twisted things against Pulisic. To me, it's weird. I saw by Matt Law today, I think it was on London Blue podcast, that he apparently said that Werner, Pulisic and Hakim Ziyech would be willing to listen to offers for them in the summer. Do you know whether that's true at all? Yeah,
no, definitely these. Maybe Hudson-Odoi as well if the offer's right. It depends on the offers. Ziyech they're happy with Ziyech now because he's obviously stepped up a bit. But the others, if the offers are right, then maybe.
But when you say maybe, is it a case maybe also for Chelsea to accept it? Or is it a case of maybe the players might want to leave, but Chelsea are probably like, well, because if we sell too many of these guys, then that also means we need to sign a fair few of these guys. And then God knows how many players we then need to sign in the summer. So that's the only reason why I find it unlikely that too many of the forwards leave, because we already need at least one centre-back. We already need one wing-back, wherever that's going to come from. Arguably two. On the right-hand side, you could debate, because that's another annoying thing. Livramento's private closes only next summer. So what do we do next year if Azpilicueta leaves? We're screwed. But and obviously Tchouaméni, we'll get to those to him in a minute. But if too many leave, we can't replace everybody, can we?
No. It's going to be interesting for sure. I think there'll definitely be at least one of them will leave, I think, because obviously Dembele, like we've said earlier, is going to be available. Could be available for a free agent in the summer. So we're going to have to make room somehow. Obviously, he likes Chiesa. Rafinha is another name, but I can't see that happening. So we're going to have to...
Nathan, can I just ask you something quickly? Another name. What about Antony from Ajax? Because I think he's another one of those young guys, right? That we've got a good relationship with Ajax. I've always said maybe if Ziyech wanted to leave, that he's talked about going back to Ajax. Do you think anything could happen there? Because I think he's a good player as well.
I haven't heard anything, but never say never, I guess, in the transfer window. I haven't heard anything.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
I just heard you say there about Rafinha. You don't think that's going to happen. Why don't you think that's going to happen? Do you think Chelsea are not going to pay what's needed? Or do you think he's not going to want to come? Or Tuchel is not going to want Rafinha? Why do you say you don't think Rafinha is going to be happening?
Because of the price, I think there'll be other clubs that are going to be interested in him. So, but let's see if Leeds get relegated, for example, it could be a good opportunity on the market. But a lot of clubs are going to be interested. If they stay up, a lot of clubs are going to be interested, and they're going to have a high price tag on him.
Fair enough. It's not your fault, of course, Nathan, but it's not sounding too great. Whoever it is like, too expensive. He wants Emerson anyway. All right, bloody hell, we can't just have Emerson, and we can't even afford Rafinha. When you see Liverpool signing, what's his name, Luis Diaz from Porto today, it's like, Like, come on, do something, Chelsea, please, for goodness sake. Pies, I'll ask you quickly on it. Obviously, some of it is definitely opinion based, but is there anything else you wanted to kind of touch on or ask Nathan about in terms of the players moaning, as we wrote it down here, recently, or potentially like the comments by Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Pulisic thing, I think people were probably making it a bit more out, than it actually was, to be kind of probably trying to start arguments and comparisons within the fan base. I know a lot of that happens, saying, I saw someone saying, well, you can't, have a go at Lukaku, but then not have a go at Pulisic for coming out and speaking. But it's completely different situations for me. I mean, with Lukaku, like you said, went behind the club's back, annoyed Tuchel. And that's the main thing, is what he said about the Inter Milan fans being the best in the world as well. I think when that quote came out, I think everyone just lost it. They were like, how dare you say that after, saying Chelsea was your dream and all that. So, yeah, I think Lukaku went really overboard. Like, it wasn't just one quote. It was like 5, 6, 7 different quotes. Like, there was 2 parts. And the fact he did it when, obviously, the Manchester United game came around, he was supposedly frustrated, wasn't he? Not playing. But, I mean, how can you even have those frustrations? He was injured, mate. Like, so I think, those situations not comparable for me. And, just in general with players moaning, it's very, very hard. I think we have like 7, 8 attackers. That's why, or maybe if you include Mount, maybe 7, 8, something like that. It's very hard to keep everyone happy. So, I mean, that's why I never really saw Dembele joining in January, because I think it just adds on to those attackers anyway. And if they're unhappy, then, Tuchel can only play 3 of them usually, right? So, or maybe 4 if he sticks with the 4 at the back. But still, Tuchel can't keep everyone happy. And I think the overall consensus and judgment we've got from, inside articles and the news we've been hearing is that Tuchel's actually a very good man manager, and a lot of them like him. But, it's difficult. It's difficult to keep everyone happy. No one's going to be 100% completely happy with not playing all the time, and it's football. Some of them are going to move on, and that's why I'm interested to see how many leave. I think Matt Law said he reckons 2 out and 1 in, but again, I agree with Nathan. I think it's situational. It depends on offers. If Chelsea are focusing on trying to sign, I don't know, Koundé, for example, but then all of a sudden a bid lands from Bayern Munich and Nagelsmann wants Werner for 40, 50 million, he could go. And it's the same with Ziyech. Offer comes in, he could go. It's always dependent on offers. So I think Nathan's right there. I wouldn't expect Chelsea to just try and push all these guys out the club, because that's not how it works. It's a lot of negotiations. And I think hopefully, from my point of view, hopefully offers do come forward, because Pulisic has still a lot of market value in him. Even though he's not been great, I mean, you think of him as an asset as well. He's not just a player that you buy. He's an asset for the American fan base. He's the biggest American star in the world in terms of, football. So you get money out of sponsorship deals, things like that. So I always think there'll be a market for him. Werner, I think there's always a market for Germany, because he's still young, and I think he wants to probably go back there. You think of Ziyech, maybe not such a market for him because he's getting on, but still, I think maybe some clubs will try for him. And so I could see them all leaving, but I don't think that will happen. Like, I could see it, but I don't think it will happen, because it's all on offers, as you said. So it's going to be interesting in the summer for sure, and I think we're going to go on to that now. Lauren's right.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I'll just finish it off by saying, I mean, obviously, I don't know how true it is, but none of these players better be sat there trying to blame Thomas Tuchel for their poor form, because, as much as I said, Kaya can understand a little bit of frustration because he hasn't played for a while now, even though Lukaku hasn't played well. That is fair enough. But it also doesn't hide from the fact that Kai Havertz was signed as literally generational. We paid £72 million for him. And other than in the Champions League final, he's kind of not been what we all hoped for a little bit. Sure, some of that might be that we haven't really played any system in which his best position arguably exists. You can make that debate, sure. And Pulisic maybe hasn't got that run in his best position that he arguably, deserves, or at least he hasn't had it since Lampard, and that's when he was good. And you can't even, people call Pulisic injury prone, and he certainly is injury prone to some extent. But since Pulisic was last injured, Kante was injured 3 times. So, do you know what I mean? It's a very different situation. There's injury prone, there's injury prone. Pulisic has actually been fit for a while. And there was a period of time where he also played a lot of games, most of them wing back, but still, his body shone through it. So it's like, come on, give them a chance. But I don't want to hear anybody complaining. Like, that's annoys me. When I hear about players complaining behind the background, it's not good. But just lastly on that last topic, potentially players moaning, whatever. As far as you're aware, is the relationship or the mood in the dressing room, is it still good, or is it good again after the Spurs win? Obviously, the players all went out now on their little holidays, except obviously a couple on international duty. But is everything back to being okay, or is there still a few like problems going on at the moment?
It's hard to say, obviously, because they're on after the game. They went to international, or some of them went to international break and some of them went on holiday. So it's hard to say. But obviously beforehand, obviously it wasn't that good because everyone's mentally and physically tired. We had the Lukaku incident. Not everyone's going to play, so some people are going to have to play out position, like you said, of Pulisic and stuff because of injuries. We have no choice but to play sometimes Pulisic at wing back, for example. But everything after that Spurs win was fine. Everything was good. I mean, they were on holiday, weren't they? So that probably helped.
There you go. And hey, we're playing Plymouth after that, but after that, we're going straight back into the sun. So how much complaining can you really do? I would say. But yeah, let's move it on, like Pies has touched on. Let's move it on to talking about potential summer transfer targets. Obviously, you touched on Tchouaméni a couple of times already in this stream, initially saying that it was actually Thomas Tuchel's decision to not go for him, but go for Sonny Guez. I read somewhere today, don't know what the source was though, that also Tchouaméni's asking price is significantly increased. Like, does that, because if that is true, at some point we're like, well, who are you going to sign? Because Declan Rice is too expensive. I don't think we're going to sign Declan Rice just because it's going to cost too much money. But if Tchouaméni also becomes too expensive, who do we sign? Or do we then also not sign a midfielder next year? How do you see that happening? And do you think at all that depends on Tuchel, whether how much he wants to change formation? Like, if we have our wing backs fit, does he still go back to the back three, or would he prefer a back four? Like, how much do his decisions like that influence? And do you know, has he made that decision yet? Like, does Tuchel know whether he wants a back four or not? Because I presume everybody, like, not everybody, but everybody needs to know what he wants to do for us to sign the right players, because it depends what formation he wants to play as to what players we need, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, he likes the four at the back formation, but it also depends on who we're playing, of course. If we're playing, say, Manchester City, for example, we might go a bit more defensive and go a bit more, maybe three at the back. But if we're playing, I don't know, say a Brighton or something like this, we'll go four at the back because we have to be more attacking to win the games. But yeah, no, he likes the four at the back formation. I think we'll see a lot more next season of it. Even this season.
Fair dues. I mean, I hope so, personally. That's the only small positive for me. It's like the fact that Malang Sarr has played well at left back tells me we're going to play four at the back quite often. So, pick up Malang Sarr for saving our season. No, I'm joking. But Tchouaméni, do you know how much that would probably cost in the summer? Do you think that's is it realistic for Chelsea fans to think there's a good chance we're going to get Tchouaméni in the summer, or do you think that's still too far away to think like that?
Yeah, it's difficult to say in January of now, of course. It's always hard to predict what's going to happen in the summer. Obviously, he's an option, of course. Chelsea were talking all last summer with his agents and stuff. Czech as well. Czech's a fan of him. But Tuchel and the board came to a decision that thought Sal was the better option because they thought Tchouaméni could guarantee could be better after another year at Monaco, just so he can play consistent football. Because obviously he's not going to be guaranteed that at Chelsea when we've got Kovacic, Kante, and Jorginho. So they thought Tchouaméni would be better at Monaco for another year. Whether we'll sign him in the summer, let's see. It's interesting because they have a good relationship. The board and the agents and everyone involved, but let's see if we pay the price of what they want, which is about 70 million, 80 million, something like this.
Like, I get obviously the idea that Tuchel and the board were like, it's probably going to do him better another year there, and that's probably factually true as well. But whether it's better for our bank account to have waited for one more season, I'm not sure if that was a great thing in hindsight.
Yeah. They did. They obviously thought Sal was going to be I don't really want to say too much about Cesar, but they probably thought he was going to be better than what he's been so far. Hence why there was an option to buy on it, just in case he did do well. And we decided to buy him, but there's no sign of us buying him at the end of the season.
No.
But yeah, let's see what happens.
There you go. I mean, it's an interesting one. Any other specific targets, Pice, that you would like to talk about?
Well, I think Koundé is obviously the interesting one. Probably dependent on, I mean, centre-back signings probably depend on how many leave, right? Because I think there's been links to Nicolas Soule as well. I think a few outlets have said Tuchel likes him. But for me personally, Nathan, I really hope we do get Jules Koundé, because talking about the back four is, you talk about the Koundé playing right back in the back four, and he plays there literally a lot of the time for Sevilla. He plays a centre back in the back four, and he plays right back. He plays right back for France. So for me personally, if they don't get this one done, I'm going to be fuming, because we had the chance last summer, and I know it was difficult because obviously Zuma, he didn't want to go to Sevilla, right? He wanted to stay in England, and then the prices kept going up and down, or whatever happened. It was a nightmare. I remember following it and tweeting about it, and it was just, it was crazy. But I think Koundé is one that the club are still very, very interested in, right? And just going back to the midfielder is Tchouaméni and Declan Rice. Like, I know you said the price for Tchouaméni is probably going to go up now, and it's obviously very risky for Chelsea to leave that another year, right? And Chelsea traditionally don't like getting in big auctions anymore, so I'm surprised Chelsea have left it. And I mean, I hope they're doing background work behind the scenes, because obviously another thing to mention is Tchouaméni, Koundé, both the same agent. So put the dots together. I mean, likely this is what we were thinking last summer. Both of them could come. It'd be brilliant, right? Wouldn't be that hard. They're both mates as well. Like, they're very, very good friends. So this makes absolute sense to get both of them. But yeah, what are you thinking? And any other positions as well? I mean, I'm pretty sure you tweeted about the Borna Sosa guy, right? Is he a left wing back? Yeah. Another one I'm very interested in, because he looks like a very good young player and he gets a lot of assists. And I've been thinking this the whole time. Chilwell, people say, oh, well, Chilwell's coming back. Guys, he's not going to be playing for a long time. Like, it's, and even when he does come back, is he going to be the same? His position requires a lot of sprints, left back or left wing back. So, yeah, what do you think on Koundé? I know you mentioned a bit about midfield, maybe the wing back situation. We've mentioned attackers, right? Another one I'd like to point out as well, just for midfield. This is me, not, I'm not saying you've said this or anything, but I like to look at the situation, obviously, of Frank Kessie as well, because he is one that's obviously more of he's a DM, right? He can play sort of DM role. And I think Tuchel's probably looking for that guy that can transition into playing back four more regularly, that can screen the defence, but also go forward a little bit. Is that right in thinking he wants that profile, someone more physical, defensive? Because we're lacking that at the moment, right? So,
yeah, no, you're right. Obviously, if we're going to go to a four at the back, we need someone that can play that kind of role, that can, a DM kind of role that can sit and just clear things up, do the basics well, and defend well and stuff like this. Regarding Koundé, yeah, he's top of the list of the targets for the summer of defenders. Saul's another one because Tuchel's a fan of him, and he's
Can
a
I
free
quickly
agent.
jump in there? Would it be Koundé and Soule, or one or the other?
It could be both, because Azpilicueta and Christensen, well, I'm certain Christensen will leave. Let's see if Azpilicueta, but if both leave, I think both can come in.
Very interesting. Soule is a tough one for me. I mean, obviously, you might not be aware, Nathan, but I'm from Austria, very close to Bavaria, Munich in Germany, but it's more like, rather than I like them, it's more like I extra dislike them. And also, like, he was great, or a very promising up-and-coming defender, like before his big ACL injury, but it's just not been quite the same after. Pice telling me the other day that Bayern fans think this season has been good. So it's a weird one for me, really, because he's an absolute man-mountain, which is not a bad thing to have in your team. But I feel like the Premier League is so far, but then again, Bundesliga, no one cares about defending there. So maybe he would also be good here when we actually defend. So Soule is a weird one for me. I'll ask you one thing about all free transfers. Are free transfers really as much cheaper as transfer fee transfers as people think they are? Because a lot of these signing on bonuses are quite big, aren't they?
Yeah, like Christensen's, for example, his camper demanded a lot, like Rudiger's was, but obviously the clubs are not going to pay this, including the wage Rudiger wanted. So yeah, that is the problem as well. But yeah, that's all I've got to say really.
Fair enough. Just to bring you back to what Pice mentioned a second ago about Sosa, obviously from Stuttgart in the Bundesliga. Is that a thing? Like, presumably we're going to try to get rid of both Emerson and Alonso in the summer. And I mean, tell me otherwise if not, but I presume that's probably going to be the plan.
Yeah.
But then if Chile is not back fit to start come the start of the season, even if we bring one in, then we're still stuck with one. I mean, I guess Malang Sarr could stay, I don't know, as this backup left back for the first couple of months of the season.
Kennedy.
Gone.
Maybe Kennedy.
True, maybe Kennedy. But Kennedy less so in the back four, though, right? Like more so for a wing back, right?
I think he could do a job in both positions, to be honest. Like I said, Tuchel's a fan of him. We could see what he does in pre-season with him, because he didn't really play much in pre-season, but if he gave him a pre-season to adapt, hopefully do well. That's just me predicting what could happen. That's not news or anything.
Whose internet just cut out, mine or yours?
I'm still here.
Could have been mine. Might have been mine.
No, it definitely wasn't your Spice, because for me,
I don't know. My screen just completely froze. So I don't know. It was a bit weird.
Is everything
fair enough? Yeah. No idea what happened, but I think it's all good now. But back to Sosa. Do you think that's a realistic target for us in the summer?
Yeah, Chelsea are interested. For sure, he could be an opportunity if we put the money down. He's a good player. I don't really have much more to say than there's interest from Chelsea right now. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Nathan, I want to ask you something on the midfield again. So, you were saying about Tuchel would ideally like to get a DM as such that could sit in front of the back four and kind of transition more to the four at the back. Do you think that's because of Jorginho's sort of mobility issues? Because I know that's been reported a lot, right? That he doesn't really. I mean, we've been playing Jorginho back four now, but I mean, long term, does Tuchel think, maybe Jorginho, he's kind of slow? What is the issue? Because obviously we do want a DM, so there's obviously something that's playing in Tuchel's mind, right? Or is it just a case of different profile, different options for different games?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, really, because there is times when we're against the ball, when we don't have a lot of ball, where we do lack a DM. We've seen this in games, of course. It's a bit of both. It's a bit, on the opposition, of course. But yeah, no, it's of course every team wants a DM in their team, so it's for sure one we're looking at.
There you go. I mean, the Sosa one could be very interesting, especially because Stuttgart might even get relegated. So that could, keep the price quite low. But I guess the problem will always be how many other clubs will try, and that will obviously raise the price. Pice, any other particular players you would love to talk about? Obviously, ladies and gentlemen watching, appreciate you if you're still here. Again, subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the like button for me. Appreciate the fact that Nathan took time out of his day to come here. And obviously, if there's any other players that we might not have discussed or any of the things we might not have discussed, do use the super chat function so I can highlight it on screen and we can actually discuss and get those involved as well if you want to at all. But Pice, anything else you would like to touch on before we move on here?
I was going to ask maybe a little bit about Levi Colwill as well, because I know he's a lot of the one where a lot of fans seem to like him. He's having a very good loan, and obviously some, reporters are comparing his loan even to Reece James's at Wigan in terms of consistent quality. I mean, I've watched him a bit. He does look very good. And it's just interesting that Sule would be, it's interesting that Sule links are even coming out, because we have Levi Colwill there, who's a ready-made left centre-back. And we've seen how just introducing young talents like Trevor Chalobah into the team can kind of save you a signing, save you a bit of money. So, I mean, in terms of like wages and stuff like that, sure Sule would be on a fair chunk compared to someone like Colwill coming in. So, heard anything about Colwill plans? Do you think he'll go on loan, or I've actually seen maybe it's true that Tuchel will have a look at him. You reckon in pre-season?
Yeah, that's what I've been told a few times as well. We could integrate him into the team next season. Depends how he does in pre-season. Tuchel likes him. Let's see what happens. Yeah, he can. Tuchel's been impressed with his loan so far. Maybe he could do with another loan in the Premier League or something like this. Step up, of course. But yeah, he could be an option for next season. There is. I've been told this a couple of times that there has been that talk of him being integrated into the team next season. Yeah, let's see what happens.
I mean, you could argue we'll need it anyway, because obviously, if we still want to keep the back five as an option, back three, whatever you want to call it, if Aspi leaves, like we all arguably already don't have quite enough players with injuries included for a back three, and that's having Aspi as a wing back and centre back. So you could argue, because I would presume, obviously Nathan, tell me if I'm wrong. Even if we go mostly back four next season, we will still have the back three as an option whenever we need it, because I think we've played that long enough now to keep it as an option around. So from that perspective, having Colwill around a left-footed centre back, because Sule isn't left-footed, Kunde isn't left-footed. So whoever we're looking at in the transfer market, they don't really solve that issue either, do they? So it makes sense that he gets involved, does it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he could benefit with another loan though. It all depends how Tuchel sees him in pre-season, I guess. We'll just have to go from there and see what happens.
There you go. Just lastly, of the loanies that we have currently out on loan, other than Colwill, is there anybody that you think Chelsea could try to keep involved? Obviously, there'll always be like, maybe Tuchel likes them, maybe not. But is there a case of some you are like, we're definitely going to try to sell them? Again, coming back to the whole new loan regulations, we can't just be as willy-nilly to like, oh, you go on loan and you go on loan and you go on loan. For some of them are too old. Like, I don't know, the Batshuayas. I mean, Drinkwater's contract at least runs out. But is there any of them? I mean, Josh mentioned there in the chat, Ian Martin, for example. Is there any of those guys that you think you could stay, he could go, like in terms of permanent move?
Yeah, Ian Martin's another one. I know they were looking at him as an option of like an emergency option this January, but I think he's injured right now, right? I think he is injured. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I am not aware, Pice.
Yeah, I am actually not sure about that. I don't really, to be honest, with it's kind of sounds bad, but I don't really follow the loan system as much as I probably should. So I know there's certain accounts
there's too many.
I know there's a few sort of certain accounts that love to follow everything. I mean, you got CFC Loan Army, which is run by CFC Felix. He's very good at that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm not too sure on Martin's injury or whatever.
I think he sat out last game for Coventry, so I think there's something wrong there. He was an option Chelsea were looking at for an emergency option call back, but I guess they went for Kennedy in the end as that option. So, but yeah, he's
so weird to me. Like, sorry to interrupt you. Like, I get that you said Tuchel likes him, and I understand that, but he was on loan in Brazil, so clearly no one else in Europe likes him. Because otherwise, why would he have been alone in Brazil?
Yeah. I think it was more when he was at Newcastle, when he had that solid, consistent game time at Newcastle, where he was impressed at him. He's quite an athletic fullback, I'd say. Mm-hmm. So he probably thought he could probably play that wing-back system quite well. Obviously, I don't know Tuchel's thoughts behind it, but all I was told, he was a fan of him in pre-season. So, yeah.
Do you think he could get a chance against Plymouth when we obviously come back from the break? Obviously, it's pure speculation. You're in as well.
If he does, that would be the early team news. Why not? Obviously, he's probably building his fitness up right now because he hasn't played a lot of minutes. It was more Tuchel that wanted him back than the club. I know the club were, if a player was going to come in, the club would look to sell him on again, because he's had a few instances in the past of his social media that the club haven't been too impressed with. So it was Tuchel's decision to recall him. But yeah, let's see if he gets a chance against Plymouth. I mean, even Lewis Hall, why not give him another go there?
True.
Yeah. Obviously, it's just.
But at some point, I mean, again, obviously, this is not like your knowledge or your decision, but it's just like, either you're gonna play Lewis Hall or you don't. Like, if you're gonna play him in the cups, use him in other games as well. Don't then randomly play Malang Sarr all the time. Either like use one of them or don't. But don't just waste these cup games for minutes when we could give minutes to, I don't know, try Malang Sarr's wing back. I don't know, maybe it's better than we realize. Like something. But just to round things out towards the end here. One question that I'm sure some people in the chat will be interested in as well. I think Pice, you might have already told Pice in private. How do you, obviously you could probably, I presume you get the whole team sheet when you release your early team news before, like 15 minutes or whatever before they eventually come out. How do you decide which one you release? Or is it just like whatever you feel like?
I get the whole team, but I try and base it on which one I think the fans at least going to expect to see on the team sheet, if that makes sense. So, you ask for, I see a lot of people asking for sometimes the obvious, but I think, would you rather the least expected or the obvious, like who you want to start? So I morely pick the person you think that's least expect to start.
By the way, that's been great for my account as well. The whole early team news and stuff. I mean, people really love seeing that, honestly. So yeah, thanks for doing that, because that's honestly on match day I get really excited. I'm like, right, Nathan's 15-minute team news. Like, let's go. Like, I even made I got someone to make me graphics of like the whole squad. Havertz, Lukaku starts. It's just brilliant. Like, everyone seems to love it. So yeah. I know you've changed.
Please never post Lukaku starts, because
bro,
I don't want him to start anyway. So at least I have 15 minutes more of happiness.
It's funny as well, because like I get people DMing me like the day before the game, right, saying, "Ask Nathan to do this player because I really want to know." And I'm just like, all right, I'll try. But I know you've like transitioned to one now. It used to be two, right? So
I thought I was leaking a bit too much, because I don't want to. I obviously checked with my source beforehand to see how much I can actually leak. I used to do 2 + 1 in the comments, but for the time being, because we've gone for a bit of a sticky spell, the last thing you need is me telling the whole team to everyone. So I just cut it down a little bit, but I might up it again. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll put pressure on you to do that. Don't worry.
If bad comes to us, you can just tell us. We won't tell anyone, all right?
Yeah, I think it's something the fans like before kickoff, 15 minutes before the team's out. Sorry, I think some people get more excited when they see it. So I do my best to get the team. I couldn't get it against Tottenham, unfortunately, but probably not the best. Probably not the best to say any players for that game, because there was a bit of we're a bit on a sticky spell, weren't we, before this? So
and no one was probably sure what formation it was anyway. Are you ever told the formation as well?
Yeah, I'm told the formation most of the times. I wasn't told anything for the Tottenham game, so I was in the same boat. But yeah, I'm told the formation, but I don't normally leak this.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, Thomas Tuchel loves calling formations different things to what I see them as anyway. In my opinion, playing a 4-2-2, he was like, it's a 4-4-2. I'm like, how have you come to a 4-4-2 from this? I don't understand.
It's when we played Carabao Cup second leg, was it? I think it was 4-2-2, but we against the ball, we were playing 3 at the back. So Hudson-Odoi would drop into wing back. So yeah, I know it's quite hard to understand sometimes, but that was what I was told.
There you go. It's very interesting, though. It's very interesting. Pice, you just said you have a couple of more fan questions. Obviously, Pice on his Twitter did reveal yesterday that we're going to record this or live stream this with Nathan. So a couple of questions from the fans. Let's call them viewers, right? We're not like, super crazy fan of the famous. Do you know what I mean? Even though someone was telling me the other day I'm the 3rd most famous Austrian, and then he told me I'm the 2nd most famous Austrian. I'm like, you just don't know any Austrians, bro. But there you go.
Because of the YouTube comment, right? We got a response from YouTube. I was like,
I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's very, very weird. I felt quite embarrassed if I'm saying like Pice Hive and stuff. I was just like, oh god, stop. But
you know what? When Christensen leaves, you never know which hive Lewis is going to start next. So you never.
Yeah. I'm only really a part of the Kovacic hive, if you want to call it that. Laurenz knows that I'm a big fan of Kovacic.
Actually, question I have for Nathan before we get to the fan question: whose Chelsea players hive are you in? Who's your favourite Chelsea player? Essentially, is what I'm asking.
God,
He's going to say Mount, isn't he? I'm pretty sure you said Mount to me before.
Yeah, no, he's top 3. It's hard to say. I hate to be that person that says I don't have one. But
as long as you don't say Lukaku, it's fine, bro.
I like Mount. I like Jorginho. I like Kepa. Probably them 3. I can't really say in any order. Probably them 3.
Is it just me that sees a little bit of similarity between you and Kepa?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
See, there you go. See, it's not bad similarity by any means. I would say, so, no complaints there. But Pies, sorry, I've been holding you up for asking you bloody fan questions for half an hour now. Please go.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple more that got sent in, Nathan. So one of them is more about contracts, which I just missed on when we did the contract updates. It's actually very interesting, one of these players, because I know you spoke about Jorginho a little bit, but Kante is one of the ones where I'm very interested in. Now, for me, it may just be a very simple answer. You think he's going to stay. But obviously, he's getting towards the end of his contract, right? And every summer, I kind of think, right, are Chelsea going to cash in on Kante? Is this the summer? Is this the summer? And he always ends up staying. So what do you think is going to happen with Jorginho and Kante? Do you just think it will be Jorginho, Kante, Kovacic, and then a new midfielder? Or, does Jorginho go back to Italy? Because specifically on those 2 players, right? Because they've not got many years left. I'm pretty sure they've both got 2 of them. It could be a good time to cash in on them. Maybe one last cash in. But what are you hearing on those 2, if anything?
Well, I think if Tuchel's there, I think they'll stay. That's my feeling, to be honest. Because, Tuchel loves them, doesn't he? He's a big fan of them. But I think Jorginho, it's a feeling. I think he'll do maybe one more season at Chelsea, and then go to Italy to try and win the Scudetto, because that's always been a dream of his, of course, because he's Italian. He would obviously want to win the Scudetto. But yeah, as long as Tuchel's there, I think they'll stay. That's my feeling.
Do you think there could be contract extensions on the cards for either of them? Because if Jorginho does one more year, that would mean he leaves on a free as well without a contract extension. Yeah,
no, that's the plan. There's been a few talks behind the scenes about this, but nothing. It'd be something more for the summer, of course, to sit down and discuss. Something not now, maybe towards April, May time, something like this. But yeah, I can definitely see them. Well, they've planned to do this, so it's probably going to happen more April, May time when they sit down.
The interesting one is going to be Kante on that, because Kante is already now, I think, behind Lukaku, but second highest earner. So if he gets a contract extension, but will he accept a pay cut? Because with his injury troubles, I would presume Chelsea will probably try to get him to take a pay cut. But will he accept a pay cut?
Yeah, he's that type of player that doesn't really mind, does he? He's probably the most easiest going footballer you'll meet.
True.
As long as he's playing football, I think he's happy, to be honest.
Exactly there. Pies, any other questions that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, one more was about Livramento. Now, I guess this is obviously a very interesting one, because for me, a fantastic player. When he left, and I watched him those first couple of games for Southampton, similar to Lamptey, actually, I was like, yeah, these guys are it, man. Like, they are very, very good. I wish, at least we could have kept one of them, but we do have that buyback clause for Livramento, right? 2023.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen there? I know that obviously that's in the future. It's not even next summer. But have you heard anything about sort of when Livramento left, in terms of, did they say anything to him? Like, we'd like you back here one day, or good luck, or, what? Did you hear anything about discussions or what happened really?
That's definitely in the back of the minds of, right, we've got Livramento, but it's always hard to. That's why I said in a podcast that we were looking more of a short-term option of a fullback. Obviously, that's not going to happen now because we've got Reece James returning, but we're looking more of a short-term option because we've got Livramento in the back of the minds. So it'd be interesting to see. I think obviously we mentioned Koundé earlier can play fullback and centre back, so he'll definitely be one we're pushing for. So I don't expect us to push for a out and out fullback in the summer, because we've got Livramento in the back of our heads. But
you reckon as well that's why maybe Dest didn't come in? Or I know you said they were looking at Dest, but I said to you on Instagram, right? I was like, well, doesn't really make sense to bring Destin if they're looking at, you know, Livramento for the future as well, because they're both young wing backs / fullbacks, right? So
that's why they wanted a loan with an option to buy with him, just in case he was good for us if he did join us. But he wants to stay at Barcelona, so yeah.
What is with these players wanting to stay at Barcelona, even though Barcelona want to get rid of them? Like,
Yeah,
what's that?
I know. I don't really get it, to be honest. Especially when he's got loads of clubs interested in him. Maybe he feels like he can force his way back into the team, because obviously he doesn't want, you know, Barcelona is still a big club and brilliant club to be at, but maybe it's more of a summer thing where we'll assess and go from there.
Potentially. Just quickly, just to confirm, what number is the buyback clause for Livramento? Is it like 40 million? Do I remember that right? It's around that mark?
Yeah. So like, I think 35, 40 million, something like this. I think more 40 million. I can't remember exactly, but it is something like this. Yeah.
There you go. Obviously, I'm not quite sure how involved in the whole discussions you were, considering you're quite young as well. But do you know, was Chelsea, when we sold Tariq Lamptey to Brighton, did we try to include a buyback clause in that? Or like, because for him, obviously, we don't have one. And obviously, Livramento and him, they're both just, you know, lighting the whole league on fire. And it's just like, we don't have wingbacks, and those two are just literally playing South Coast. Do you know what I mean? Did we try for Lamptey at all to put a buyback clause in there? And why did that not happen if we did?
I don't exactly know, because I didn't really have sources back then. So I can't really speculate on this. I mean, as a feeling, I guess so, because, you know, he's a good player. We saw this potential, you know, when he played against Arsenal for that game and in the academy and stuff. But obviously, you know, he settled at Brighton now. A few clubs are interested in him. So yeah, I don't know if we discussed a buyback clause, but yeah.
There you go. And one last question from me before we round it out here that I have, which I guess you could build into two questions, whatever you want. And that question for me is, do you think the club are, because obviously you touched on it earlier as well for January specifically, but in general, do you think the club are currently in the process of trying to change those problems that we've had in terms of long-term planning? Are we in the process of making amends for those mistakes? Because obviously if we made mistakes 2 years ago in certain situations, we've made those mistakes. You can't fix every mistake. You can't undo things. But what we can do is try to make less mistake going forward. And are we in the process of doing that? Because, I mean, I saw a couple of people, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like back in the Emenalo days, we signed like players early, you know, look at the Oscars, the Salahs, the De Bruynes, the Hazards, we signed us early. But now last summer with Tchouameni, we decided like, no, let's wait another year. But
yeah, well, long-term planning, I would say, has just been a little bit of a problem this window, because for example, Lukaku, we tried to sign him under the Lampard season as well in that really? Summer. So he's always been, he's always been a long-term target for us to bring back. But in that summer, he wanted to stay with Conte and win the Scudetto, which he did. So season after that, he did this and came to Chelsea. So he's always been an option for Chelsea for 2 years now, Lukaku. So long-term planning, and I'd maybe just say for this window could have been better, but on the whole, I think it's okay. I think it's good. I think it's fine. I mean, obviously, I know the deadline day of Sal was a bit wow, and we probably could have got Lukaku a bit sooner, because we did try for Haaland for a long time and we weren't getting anywhere. But yeah, that was a bit of a shock to me when we did leave Sal till deadline day. I think we could have wrapped that up sooner. But there we are.
There we are. I mean, you keep saying things that remind me of new questions. For Haaland, you know, there's been people and somewhat reliable sources that even say, "Oh, don't rule out Chelsea going for him again in the summer." Is that a thing?
Yeah,
we could do that.
It's hard to say, because I can't see him going to Chelsea, to be honest. Obviously,
it's not why we have Lukaku. I feel like how can we afford that?
Yeah, I was going to say as well. Like, sorry,
I mean, sorry, you go.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say as well. Like, Lukaku, like, I don't think Percy's going to leave, but imagine like imagine someone like did put in like, I don't know, £70 million or something. Like, I know it's not 100 million, but do you think Chelsea like might I don't know, like it's hard, isn't it? It's very hard to see him going, but like anything can happen in the summer, and it's early to say. But like I was thinking as well, if Lukaku stays, for me, if we sell Broja and Lukaku stays, are we going to stick with Havertz as like the guy up front and the backup? Because me personally, I know me and Laurenz do like player rating streams after games, and I constantly say to Laurenz, well, we could have done with Giroud today off the bench.
Yeah.
You know, the Athletic said last summer, I think it was looking at Kaladzic, who was actually Austrian, and Laurenz and me were having a discussion. And I was like, right, Laurenz, tell me about this 6'7" geezer, because we do need a backup up front. And I was like, you know, do you reckon Chelsea look at a backup if they sell Broja, or do you think it's Havertz? Because I mean, for me, we need a backup.
Well, let's just say Tuchel isn't impressed with the form of both of these players right now, of Havertz and Werner. So I wouldn't be surprised. Who, I don't know.
Well, he's apparently impressed with Lukaku's form. That is just mind-boggling to me. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
Yeah. But yeah, let's just see. I do know what you mean. We do need someone like a Giroud kind of player. He's just so clinical. He's just, you know, you can always rely with someone like him off the bench. Well, I don't think we really have that kind of a striker where we can rely, like, you know, with a player like Giroud off the bench. I don't really
We don't
see.
even have a striker on the bench. Neither Werner, Havertz are strikers.
Yeah. But yeah, I sure can see it being an option. But I think wingers are more priority. But let's just see. It's obviously hard to see what will happen in summer. But
yeah, we definitely need to get you back on in the summer, because I think then obviously you'll know more, everyone else will know more, and I think that'll be a really good episode, because we can talk more in depth about the summer. Because to be honest, January is like, it's a good little window, but again, it's opportunities. It's hard. It's hard. It really is. Maybe I've gone a bit overboard, but for me, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, if Chelsea don't sign anyone, and Alonso gets injured, or you know, Sarr starts playing bad, then for me, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to say, well, you simply had to have someone on the scouting list that you know you could do a deal for. So yeah, that's my position on it, and that has been the same the whole time.
Don't worry, bro. If Alonso gets injured, we just play Kennedy, and we'll be better anyway.
It's like another one. It's like even at worst case, you bring Emerson back, fine, but we haven't even done that. So
I mean, that's just fine, but I don't think they realised how Lyon were going to be this difficult. They probably just wasn't expecting that. But here we are with no one.
It's crazy, honestly, bro. It's crazy. You just said there, and another thing, my bad. You just said there, wingers are more going to be a priority than strikers. Does that entail just Dembele, or are there other names?
I've mentioned Chiesa, he's a name, but he's had.
Now that he's done his in, probably not.
Yeah. I haven't been mentioned any other names so far. I think Dembele for sure would be a good option. Tuchel obviously loves him. We'll be ready to give him a good signing on fee and a good wage. But Newcastle already put an offer on the table for him, which is economically better than what ours would be. So, but I think Tuchel would be instrumental in the deal for it to happen. So, yeah.
Well, I guess with Newcastle, we don't even know if they're going to be up come next season. So
that's it. Because I can't really see Dembele joining Newcastle when they've got this feeling they could be
championship.
Imagine
this when Dembele goes to the championship. That'd be very funny. But yeah, literally my last question for you now. Obviously, if Pice has anything to add after, please do. Would you now consider, because after everything you've said so far today, I would say Thomas Tuchel is very much so backed by Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel is just a lot less demanding than us fans. That's the conclusion I've taken from this. So would you say Thomas Tuchel is backed, and when he demands a few more expensive things than Emerson, the board will also try to do that for him? Or do you see a situation where there will ever be where heads start butting? Is that whatever?
It's they back him, of course, because they went for his targets in the summer. I know they didn't get Hakimi because Chelsea weren't willing to pay what he was wanting of 10 million a year. Chelsea weren't willing to pay that. So Tuchel wasn't obviously too happy with this, but they backed him with Lukaku. He didn't mind either Haaland or Lukaku.
Wait, so Nathan, sorry to interrupt you, but you said about Hakimi there.
Yeah.
So was it just the wages, or were they not willing to pay the price as well? Or was it wages?
They wanted to swap deal with Marcos Alonso in the deal.
Right, okay.
Costa, Emerson, they were offering all these players, but Inter only wanted straight cash, and we weren't willing to pay the personal terms. Hakimi was what he wanted, basically.
Pain.
Yeah.
Could we have made that happen, or was his family being in Paris once PSG came in? Was that always going to be nearly impossible?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, all the three factors came into place, made it pretty difficult for us. The 10 million. I don't know if it was euros or pounds, but he definitely wanted 10 million a year, and we weren't willing to pay what he wanted. Plus, his wife wanted to live in Paris, and PSG offered straight cash, which made it impossible really for us to get him over the line.
Also, mind you, just for people complaining about that, even if we had signed Hakimi, had Reece James been injured anyway, Hakimi would right now be at the AFCON, so we would still have no right.
That's it. So we'll be stuck in the same place.
But I guess Reece would probably not be injured because he wouldn't have been as overplayed, I presume. But who knows what Tuchel's plan would have been with Reece? Would Reece have been playing right centre back of the back three, like in the Champions League final? Had we gotten Hakimi, probably.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as much as there's a few negatives we have to take from this, Nathan, unfortunate, but we haven't got signed players that we wanted to. But it's still, to me, I still rather us not sign players and Tuchel be happy with it than us sign players that Tuchel doesn't want. I'd rather it that way around than the other way around, if that makes sense. So, if the board, if the club are behind Tuchel, if there's nothing seriously going on, and that's also like, even if a few players are unhappy, if the board and Tuchel are like that, it doesn't matter whether a couple of players are a bit unhappy. But as long as as soon as there's a problem of relationship between the board and Tuchel, then obviously dressing room problems can be a problem. But so long as that situation is fine, I'm fine. Pice, anything else you would like to add, or shall we finish this off?
No, I think that's pretty much it, right? I think we've covered every single base, most players in the squad. You just said, Laurenz, I just hope that they are continuing to work with Tuchel, and that, this can be the guy to sort of transition us. I hope he gets his players. I hope he's the guy that breaks the 2-year curse. Usually no one's really gone over 2 years, right? So, let's see what happens.
There you go. Let's see what happens. One last question. I keep thinking of random new things. Do you see any way at all whatsoever that Lukaku leaves in the summer?
No, unless a crazy offer comes in, but I can't see him leaving.
So it's also not going to be like him pushing for it?
No.
There you go. See, we can.
It's weird because then why did he do that? Why did he do the interview then? Because that's like, you know what I mean? Like, if he wants to go, but I'm still sure he still wants to go back there. But like, why do the interview in the first place? Like, you just.
He was really annoyed with that 8. He only played 8 minutes against Man U, but he came back. He just came back from injury, so it wasn't really Tuchel's fault. He was just really annoyed he couldn't play more against his former club and prove a point, because that's what he wanted to do, and felt like he didn't get enough minutes on the pitch to prove this.
It's funny because when I was at the game, I actually thought that when he came on, I was like, I actually thought Lukaku, he's only played 8 minutes. That, he probably won't be a bit happy about that. And then he goes and does an interview. So my worst fear, like that. I remember when he came on, I that popped into my head because I completely forgot about him, to be honest. I was like, oh damn, Lukaku! Like, it almost sunk in that it was Man United, and I was thinking, he ain't going to be happy about this, isn't he? Like, he's someone that's very sensitive and wants to prove a point. So
let's not ignore though, Lukaku was awful for those 8 minutes. So,
he was. But at the same time, I was thinking, he has got a big ego, I think. So I think he's everyone's got ego when you're a big player.
Especially against his former side. He wants to prove a point. He didn't do that well at Man U. They didn't really like him. I guess he just wants
don't like him either. Sorry, I can't hold myself on from the small little digs. I think it's funny.
Laurenz is done with this guy after the interview, aren't you?
Hey, if he starts playing well at some point, I can at least enjoy that fact that he's playing well, but interview and playing shit, there's nothing for me to be happy about. So yeah, a couple of people in the chat keep telling me we need to ask about Hudson-Odoi. I'm not quite sure what you want to know about it. I mean, Nathan said earlier, if huge offers come in, maybe, but aside from that, he's going to be here essentially, right? Like he's not going to run away all of a sudden. He's young. He's the youngest of the lot of them. Do you know what I mean? So he has the most actual, time to still improve. Like we lose our shit all the time. Like I honestly sit here sometimes when people criticize Havertz and Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi, I'm like, yeah, you lot did the same thing to Salah, and look what happened. So let's not lose our shit with players when they're too young all the time, because then they could turn into Salah. I'm not saying they will be Salah, but did any of us expect Salah to do what he did and is doing at Liverpool now back when he was at Chelsea? No chance. No chance on earth that I think he would ever be that good. It's a tough one. But I think, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round it out here. I appreciate every single one of you that has tuned in today. Again, subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers. Smash that like button for me. And big thank you to Nathan for coming on. Check out his social media down in the description below. Obviously, his Twitter and his Instagram. I mean, chances are you follow his Instagram already. But if you don't, follow that and definitely check out his Twitter, which he's joined recently. Big shout out to you, Nathan. Appreciate it very much. Shout out to Pice as well. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. And when this loads, I'll say we'll see you next time.